Welcome to Fully Engaged with Jennifer N. Sutherland, where we explore thoughtful conversations about navigating the intricate world of leadership, learning, and organizational development.
Hello, Liz. So excited to have you here today.
Morning, Jennifer. Excited to be here.
Awesome. Let me do a quick intro so people understand what your world is like. So Liz Ryan is the CEO and founder of Human Workplace, a 3 million member global movement that helps people navigate career transitions and celebrate the human side of work, a LinkedIn top voice, author of multiple books, including Reinvention Roadmap. She coaches both individuals and career professionals while writing extensively about creating meaningful careers in the new millennium workforce. Liz, welcome to Fully Engaged.
Thanks, Jennifer.
So excited to have you here. I have been a fan of yours for many, many years, so I am just thrilled to have you on the podcast today. As you know, the podcast is called Fully Engaged. So let's just kick it off. What does fully engaged mean to you?
Well, engaged, I think, for me is that there is some energy or there's some current that carries you, right? So you're not just sort of, when you talk about engagement at work, for example, being engaged in your job or in your work, it means there's something that you're getting out of it. There's some kind of buzz. There's some kind of fizz that is in you, and you're following that. It's leading you forward. When you're engaged in your life or your mission, there's something that is calling you forward. So it's the idea of not static, not fixed, not locked in place, but movement, and a positive movement toward a place, a state that you choose, that is enriching for you.
I love that. I love that you use the word fizz. That is the coolest term I've heard somebody refer to when it talk about engaged. I'm a big fan of, I'm in the South now, so I probably need to say soda, but I'm from Michigan, so I call it pop. But
Yeah.
that idea of fizz, I can literally hear it and feel what you're trying to describe. I love it.
You know, I'm an have been an HR person since the 80s, honestly, Jennifer. And for me, the whole idea of HR as a role or as a function is creating that pixie dust, creating that fizz, making it more than just a place where there are desks and partitions and people are carrying out tasks. There's nothing exciting about that. Why should anyone care? And so you have to make it fizzy. You have to make it energized and put voltage in the air. That's I think our job as leaders and HR folks.
I love that. I think I first started following you, I want to say 2011, 2012. And it was one of your newsletters where you were answering people's questions about their work environment and how to interact with maybe a boss or how to deal with a coworker or what they should do from a career perspective. So with all of that background you have, I'm just going to ask you, how do you describe workplace culture? And from your perspective, what's the most sort of memorable example you've seen that describes a really interesting culture?
Well, for me, a culture started to be a big topic in leadership and HR circles in the 80s. They started to get very fixated on culture. And I saw an article in Time Magazine when Time Magazine was really a big deal. It was like everybody read Time Magazine all the time. Now it's a pamphlet, sadly. But Time Magazine was very authoritative at one time. And they had an article on culture. And they said, we've done a lot of research and others have done a lot of research, and we haven't seen a correlation, a positive correlation that you would look for in companies that have a strong culture and financial success. And right away, my 25-year-old brain said, no, that can't be right. How are you defining culture, strong culture? And so you read through the article and it says, and we define a strong culture as a company where they sing company songs and they have slogans and they have posters on the wall in the break room, about, no, that's not what it is, though. That's not what it is. For me, culture is, the easiest way to think about culture is a spectrum. A lot of people say, well, companies have different cultures and they all are complex and interesting. No, it's very, very simple. There's fear and there's trust. Fear and trust. That's the spectrum. Those are the two poles. There's more fear when there's more intense policies. Management is more strict. There's the lack of trust and a lot of fear. We're going to make sure you don't do anything wrong. We're going to have a policy for everything, approvals for everything. The other side is trust. We hire smart people that we trust. We hope they trust us, and we set them free to do awesome things. More fear means maybe fewer horrible things will happen, but you cut off all the possibility of amazing things happening. More trust, you say, oh, now and then someone's going to claim some bereavement days when their relative didn't die. Who cares? We're going to open the ceiling and amazing things are going to happen all the time.
I love that so much. When I think about the idea of employment where I've been, and there is that sense of fear, you're exactly right. That is an organization that's typically very risk averse, and they are just trying to just keep everything in that special box so they know exactly what to anticipate. But when you know what to anticipate, you're losing that
You were in
excitement, that
everything,
energy.
Jennifer. As an HR person, I realized I had been a manager 4 or 5 years before I went into HR. But when I got in HR and we started writing policies, I said, this is a fool's errand. This is a never ending digging down trapdoors. But what about the situation where this? What about the situation where that? Context is everything. Sit down and have a conversation.
Yep.
And figure out what makes sense. The policy book could be very short because we're going to talk all the time. Fewer policies, more conversation.
I love that. I sit in mostly learning and development role, but I also lead the HR business partner and HR operations. And I'd say probably 3 times a week, somebody comes to us and says, "We need a policy on X, Y, and Z." And I'm like, but do we? But first of all, there's probably one situation that you're trying to manage through. How about we just talk about how to manage that
There
situation?
you go, Jennifer. How about we just talk? And when you think about it, that's the perfect example. We need a policy for. Okay, why, my darling? Because this happened. Okay, is that bad? Because things happen in the world. That's how the world works. Things happen. Well, it was annoying. Okay, so you're saying Jennifer should take time. 3 other leaders should take time. We should put something in writing. We should put it in a book. No one will read it. No one will know it's there. We should try to implant a chip in everyone's head that they're aware, vaguely aware, this new policy exists enough that they would go look at it to avoid you ever having to have that conversation again. What is so scary about conversation? Where are you so
Absolutely.
afraid of it?
Exactly.
Does it hurt you to have a conversation? Would you rather say, the company said, it's not even up to me. The company already said. Is that you and your power? The company said. Because if it were the right answer to change or shift or bend the policy, then we would hope you would advocate and be, Jennifer, is there any way we could figure out how to? So I think
Absolutely.
we're trained, we're trained that the Godzilla, the edifice of policies and rules and fear and performance reviews and all that, that's going to protect us. No, let's be strong in ourselves. And as
Exactly. In a policy, there are probably some reasons to have a couple basic policies, especially from a compliance regulatory perspective.
regulatory, of course.
But once you start saying, well, this is the exception, or this region does it different, or this team has to do it different, or this rule does it different, then it's no longer a policy. That's not valuable to anybody if there's all of these exceptions and challenges and, reasons why this doesn't work, this doesn't work. So I love that. And policy is probably one of my least favorite things to work on. So when I can minimize how many we write, that makes me happy.
If you think about it, if policies proceed from some sort of view of the world, why don't we just share the view of the world? In general, we try to find a human solution to almost any problem. Of course, there are limits. There are limits because we have to run this business and there are minimum requirements for people being here or whatever, equipment. And so that's the balance that we're always trying to find. It's never easy, but let us know your ideas, and we'll figure it out. In general, we're here to support you. People
Yes.
are not machines. We're not going to treat people like machines. And, let's just try to find the right answer.
So true. And it sort of underlies like how comfortable are leaders with ambiguity.
Thank you.
So, Liz, I was fascinated to find out you were an opera singer before you got into HR. Tell me a little bit about that journey. How did that happen?
So, I went to high school, sang, musical theater in high school, all the choirs, all music stuff. And then I went to music school after high school. And I loved living in New York. I was living in New York City. And that was fantastic. Music school wasn't super my cup of tea at that point. The program was not busy. And I was working as waiting tables. And a friend of mine was going to Chicago. So I said, sure, I'll go to Chicago with you. And nothing really too exciting going on right now for me in New York. And I went to Chicago and found out I couldn't be a server there because you had to be 21 at the time to serve alcohol which any good restaurant where I could make money would serve alcohol, and I couldn't do it. So I didn't know what to do. So I went inside and became an office person. And I happened to get into a company that was tiny. I was employee number 30, and they grew. And so I got to see from the inside how to build a business. And they put me in HR a couple years later when I was 24. And then I really saw the potential for building an organization where trust is a huge factor. And it was a great experience. And then after a few years doing that, I had finished my degree. I went to a technology company that was small and getting ready to grow, US Robotics back in the day. And I grew that company with them to $3 billion in sales and 10,000 employees, tons of acquisitions and going public. And I really got to see how this mechanism of fear and trust was absolutely the key thing. And I said, eventually, when I stop doing this corporate stuff, because I had little kids and everything, I'll write and speak about this. I really want to teach people how to build an organization that is human powered, and also teach working people how to use their power and how to get the jobs they deserve. And so that's the stuff that we do now at Human Workplace. So yeah, it was just an evolution. And when I got into HR, the first thing I said was, "Oh, it's theater. Okay, it's theater. I get it." Because it's creating an environment just like you do in the theater.
Yeah.
You're creating in the theater a lifted up environment that isn't like I'm standing in line at the grocery store. So I mean, if you're really, I guess, evolved, standing in line at the grocery store could be uplifting too. But a lot of times we just kind of drop down, and it's not exciting. The theater's exciting. Maybe being at a sports game is exciting. Maybe being at a place of worship could be exciting, or doing something that is really special and cool. How do we build that same energy at work? So that's been my goal all this time, and working with HR folks and leaders. How do we build a really positive energy that is uplifting? So coming to work is not just, okay, here I am doing my job, I got a break in 15 minutes, but what are we working on? And lots of acknowledgement and encouragement and good energy and moving forward, and everybody feeling fizzy and strong and doing their art. That's kind of the goal.
I love that. And that is a part of, you were a part of a business that scaled, very large organization. You're a part when it was smaller organization. Culture is impactful no matter the size of the organization. And you can be a part of
100%.
that vision, right? No matter what.
So true, Jennifer. You asked about an experience that I remember that really grabbed this idea
Yeah.
of engagement and culture. I 100% agree with you. Size is not an excuse for losing your fizz. A lot of people say, well, it's a big company. There's nothing we can do. False, false, false. Well, there's no reason why large should mean set in concrete and it's fearful. There's no connection there. It's in fact, you have different business units, so they can have their own little flair. They can have their own whatever. But there's no. The whole idea of getting bigger is that you're succeeding at what you're trying to do. So that success should make it a better place to work, not a worse place to work. But when I was at US Robotics, I was employee number 100 at the time when I was hired. And they said, we're going to get really big. You have to hire a gazillion people and keep it really, fertile and vibrant and a cool place to work. I said, okay, we'll do it. And it already was a great place to work. The reason I took the job is that the sales director showed me around. Roger, shout out to you, Roger, said, if I can get a customer to come in here and see our office and our plant in the back, they're going to buy from us. And I said, really? Really? He said, yeah, if they come in here, they see the people are into it, the good energy. And I was like, oh, I want the job. I mean, that's nirvana for an HR person.
Right.
Place where the customers buy because the employees are so engaged, But we at one point at US Products had a flood, really bad flood. It flooded the whole first floor of the building, deep, and destroyed so much equipment and furniture and personal belongings. And it was a disastrous flood of the transformer. The whole thing was a disaster. Computer equipment, lab equipment. Okay. The flood happened on a Sunday morning, and our IT director called me and said, you can't believe it, but there's an unbelievable flood. A water main burst in town or something right under our building. And I said, okay, I'm going to get over there. And I got over there, and there were maybe 40 people there who had also heard about it. And we divided up the org chart and the personnel records, and we started calling everybody saying, don't come to work tomorrow, Monday. And we called, I don't know, 2,500 employees in 2 hours, people calling saying, could you call this person? Could you call that person? Calling houses where no one speaks English. They're speaking a different language. We're not sure what language. And we're like, who speaks Vietnamese? Who speaks it? And so we call everybody and so don't come to work tomorrow. We got this flood. And then the next day I went back up there to bring hamburgers or something to the folks who were trying to do, you know, whatever it's called, the cleanup work.
Yeah.
And there were like a couple hundred people there. People came anyway.
Ah,
So it's the idea that, yeah, it's our work, but it's kind of like my friends, and it's like this community where I want the right thing to happen. And I was really struck by that. There was no sense of, I mean, people deserve a day off, but they just wanted to do the right thing because the company was doing the right thing with them. And it was that way, the entire time that I worked there. So I know it's possible, and it's not even hard. It's not even hard to have a vibrant culture like that.
I love that. I'm going to kind of switch gears a little bit. Since you've been on this HR path for a long time, what have you seen that sort of breaks HR? What are some of the things that sort of are a challenge to collaboration and creativity? What are some of the things that you've seen that just it's not working?
What makes HR hard or impossible and leadership hard or impossible is managerial fear, right? Managerial fear. So if you're not allowed to do your craft, that is very, very difficult. And that's when folks end up either kind of checking out mentally, emotionally, or leaving. Return to office mandate. Why? What is that? What kind of childish nonsense is that? I've heard a lot of stuff about it's to maintain, it's for real estate reasons, and there are incentives from cities and states that require people to be back at work. Be honest, I've never heard any CEO say so. Just say it. And here's what we get from that. And so is it really so valuable that losing perhaps the best 10% of your workforce wouldn't, so that's still, I'm very anti that. I think it's unprofessional, unethical, childish, cruel, and an invitation to have your best people and everybody just leave. I'm not a fan. That's the kind of thing that makes an HR job untenable, just impossible to do because you can't justify it. As an HR person, I want to be able to justify anything that we say. And as long as I can justify it, okay, I understand business has, there's requirements, but they just have to be reasonable. Working with individual leaders who are so bound up in fear that they can't react to stimuli appropriately. They can't soften. They can't see situations through a human lens. And unfortunately, this is trained into us because I've worked with probably, 80 CEOs. And at some point, almost everyone has said, when the suggestion came up, well, we might have to make this change. And someone says, employees aren't going to like it. Almost every CEO in fear, in stress, has said, well, they're just going to have to deal with it. And everybody else around the room is like, no, they don't, though. They don't.
Right. They'll live with it, but they're going to walk with their feet.
Exactly right. They're going to walk. You say they have to live with it, babe. They don't have to live with it.
Right.
That's the whole point. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having any of these conversations. And when you get that it's all a negotiation, we're all just kind of figuring it out day to
Yeah.
day. Nothing is fixed. We have a new policy that dictates what you say,
Right.
but I get to decide how to react. And remembering that you're working with valuable talent creators who make your business. They don't help you. They make the business go. There's no business without them. It's very humbling, but it's also it's enlightening. Leaders grow when they open up to that reality that, yeah, it's not just me. Because if it were just me, I wouldn't have employees.
Exactly. It's a relationship. It's absolutely a relationship. I know we talk about that when it comes to interviewing with a new company. It's not one way. That candidate is also interviewing the company and thinking about things like culture and how do leaders react. Have you seen the balance of that shift a little bit between like when it comes to the candidate experience? Is the candidate sort of driving this recruiting behavior and recruiting experience, or is it more the company, or what have you seen?
Well, this is the tug of war. That's a great question. This is the tug of war that just doesn't end. And it's funny, the Wall Street Journal in particular is famous for writing editorials that are just shameless. You know, Days of employees writing their own ticket is over. Days of employee freedom are over. Employees better get back to the grindstone. Like just flogging this idea. If it were true, we would know it and we wouldn't need to read about it in the Wall Street Journal.
Right.
No, it is not true. It is every person is their own, you know, economic engine, a unit out here like General Motors. We're all CEOs of our own career and our own life. And every group of employees. There are fields. You see the ads on LinkedIn, the help wanted ads. They used to call the job ads.
The classified ads in the newspaper.
I clarified it. There are still ads every day on LinkedIn. I need
Yep.
this kind of engineer, $550,000 a year, $700,000 a year. It's not a privilege. It's not that you're lucky if you get the job. They need that. That's why they're paying that much, right? That's not every job, obviously, but there's a crying need for talent in all kinds of areas. And as much as people are talking right now about white collar recession, I mean, an extended white collar recession has been going on low key since the 80s, trying to eliminate white collar jobs. And it's cyclical. They do. And then they realize they got rid of too many people. But I think the remedy for that, the remedy for this up and down, this cyclical nature of employment and worry about job security is you got to build your own job security. You have to be employable beyond these four walls, your current employer. You have to build in your own ability to get a job because the ability to get a job or get work is 10 times more important than your ability to do the job.
Right.
People say, oh, I'm going to get another certification. Yeah, if you want to, but are you ready to go get another job right now, to interview and get a job? Do you have those muscles? Have you built up that wherewithal and that personal strength to go do that? Because another certification won't help you if you don't know how to get work for yourself and just deal with this somewhat dysfunctional recruiting system in order to take care of yourself. If you do that and you get stronger, you're not going to care. You'll be annoyed if company puts in some burdensome, dumb policy, but it won't destroy you because you say, well, maybe I'll leave.
Right. Exactly. It gives those chances when you need to. There's opportunity, but it's not an easy road, no matter what. Making those
It's
decisions.
not an easy road on either side, honestly.
Nope.
It's not an easy road for leaders or HR people. It's not an easy road for working people. And it's tough, really almost impossible topic to talk about, which is why I talk about it all the time. It's really hard to be honest and say, here's what we would like to do. Here's what we might be able to do. Employment at will has been part of the American employment landscape since the 1870s, but it's only the last 40 years. It's been a real, do or die issue for working people. Because when I was a young HR person, they didn't get laid off. People didn't get laid off. It was
Right.
very unusual. And if you did, you got a month's severance for every year. When I started in HR, all the
Yep.
handbooks,
Yep.
months severance for every year of service. What happened to that?
Right.
We're all temps now. So if we're going to be temps, fine, we'll be temps if we're W-2, but then we have to live like a temp. We have to be ready and we have to be sure we don't confuse loyalty to something that is fake. It's not there and there's really no loyalty coming back.
Right. Like when people talk about like, oh, we treat our employees like a family. But do you?
Where's the contract? I mean, in
Right.
Canada, in the UK, in Italy, in France, in every single other industrialized country, you just can't say that because you're not willing to give the basic worker protections that people in every single other industrialized country take for granted. And folks in Europe and elsewhere in the world are horrified when they find that the U.S. workers you could be let go at any time for no reason. That's the key. No reason, no severance.
Exactly. I just had a conversation today about at-will employment, and then there was a conversation of, well, after the probationary period, we still need to do this, 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 and this. Well, is it at will or is it not? Which
It's at will. Thank
Which-
you. It's at will. You can say, well, we sell them, we don't. We sell. I did a TikTok about PIPs, performance improvement plans, and people came out of the woodwork saying, no, that's the only thing we've tried everything else. I love you, but I don't believe you. I don't believe you. Let's talk about because if there's an old saying, to the man who carries a hammer, every problem looks like a nail.
Yes.
That's PIPs.
Yes.
That's disciplinary action. Every problem, boom, that's the PIP.
Yep.
You're on probation. Oh, well, you really solved that. Now that person they're going to magically do a great job tomorrow because they were purposely withholding their effort for some unknown reason that you have no curiosity about. Until tomorrow, it'll probably be perfect. And so that lack of curiosity is killing us. It's killing cultures.
It really is.
Because if there were a mechanical problem or a process problem, we'd do some root cause analysis.
Exactly.
People problem, no, they're just messing up. They're just slacking off. I don't
Right.
care why.
Exactly. Let's find out what's going on in their world, get their life, their leadership, their role. Like let's have a conversation. And to me, a PIP it's evolved over the years. And to me, a PIP can actually just be a really good conversation and say, hey, let's figure out how to make you help you get successful. What resources can I give you? What sort of things can we do
Happen.
internally? But everybody goes, like you said, right to this is punitive. This is a disciplinary
Punitive.
action. This is my first step so that I can fire you later, right? And document
100%.
this. And that
100%.
is absolutely the wrong way to manage a team. If they're the wrong fit, they probably already know they're a wrong fit.
That's right. And another thing from back in the olden days, as my children say, which is anything before 1990, um, it used to be if someone didn't work out, we would say, I don't know, Charlie, it feels like there's maybe a mismatch. What do you think? Is there? Well, I mean, maybe, but I'm going to do my best. I need the job. I get that. I get that. You've been here trying really hard for 9 months, and it doesn't seem like it's necessarily going to get completely on track for either of us. Could we negotiate, like a way for you to start job hunting maybe on the side and figure out it used to be conventional, not an everyday occurrence, of course,
Right.
but a few times a year, be very quiet. And we're going to give this person 3 months to job hunt. And then if they don't have something, some kind of package, it, it's because we take responsibility.
Yeah.
We put them through our arduous recruiting process. If we chose you, then we're at least as at fault as you. Why do you bear all of the burden of being summarily dismissed without severance? That's crazy. So those kinds of things are part of sort of the old, Mad Men era working world, and it hurts us because to have them gone, because it creates this animosity built in, sort of a bad energy
Right.
between
The push and the
employers.
pull, it has to be a win-lose situation as opposed to win-win
Exactly.
situation.
Us and
Absolutely.
them,
Yeah.
us and them, us and them.
So this is a great example of what I'm pretty sure you would talk about is the human workplace, which is really about reinventing work, but with that human voice, that human entity, recognize that we have that human capacity, the empath, all that type of thing. Is that what you mean by that? And if not, what do you mean when you talk about human workplace?
Human workplace. Well, I started the company. The company as Ask Liz Ryan in 2007 because I was writing a lot of advice columns and Q&A stuff. And I was on the phone with my old boss, and he said, "What are you trying to bring about?" And I said, "Well, I'm trying to bring about work being more human. Like workplace should be human." And he said, "Go see if the URL is available." But I was surprised it was. And so human workplace. So a human workplace is a workplace that acknowledges that humans do the work and run the workplace. Humans are the people who make the place go. And human energy is so incredible and buoyant and uplifting. It's all where the collaboration comes from, where all the innovation comes from, where good ideas and good energy and momentum. We know this from sports. We know it from opera, my background in musical theater, that when people are excited about something, it's 100 times more effective and successful. And it's foolish and counterproductive to squash that human energy and say, this is your job. I want it done uniformly. Here's your daily and hourly metrics. To take a creative, fun assignment and boil it down to test, 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 on time, no mistakes is idiotic, Jennifer. It's just
Yeah.
the worst thing you could possibly do. It kills the vibe. It takes the goose that lays the golden eggs and kills the goose.
Right.
And then says there won't be any more golden eggs. And maybe if you just care about dollars and cents, and you don't care about your own ethical life and your purpose here on earth, then you could do that. You could run a company that way. But if you care about any of those things, new ideas or trust, the reason that there's such a big compliance mindset in HR, like the fear that employees are waiting to jump out and sue you, is the fear that maybe we're not running the place very well and maybe we're not taking care of people. because I've never seen anybody on their own decide, yeah, I'm going to take this company for $1 million. I've never seen that happen. People really, really want to like their work, of course. So all we have to do is just make it easier for them. Take away the roadblocks that keep the trust from flowing, like you know, overly restrictive and harsh policies, and especially time off and flexibility policies, and this RTO nonsense, and just the way that we communicate with people. The royal we believe that blah. Who's we? Is there a we? Is there a person behind this memo? It's
Right.
it's taking away the sludge, the bureaucracy, the red tape, the mistrust that's kind of baked in, the overuse of metrics, overuse of evaluation. Why are we always evaluating everybody? Why? How does that help us?
Right.
And letting the good energy open up and flow. It makes recruiting easier. It makes it so much easier to hang on to people. People don't quit. If we care about those things that are so expensive and so destructive, it's very, very easy to get there. And so I created the Human Workplace vision and mission to teach people how to get there.
I love that. And the idea of how that is so important because our daily lives are stressful. And if work is also stressful, people can start to feel very overwhelmed by that. But when they feel supported and have the opportunity, and like you said, be creative and can be innovative at work, that can help lead to better things all around for everybody.
So
Um,
true.
so, some of the coaching advice that you give, specifically, I'm going to quote this: get clearer on your path by stepping back a bit and looking at your life. With us having so much noise in life, and I mean electronic and digital noise, but just relationships and challenges and financial things, all of that. Sort of, how do you suggest that people step back? What are some of the strategies, or what would you suggest?
We call that process getting altitude. And it's intentional. It is intentional. And look, thoughts and ideas and daydreams and memories and all kinds of things will flow in and out of our heads and our hearts. And it's great to notice that. But to give yourself the gift of altitude is an intentional thing. So for example, you could put it on your calendar, 2 o'clock this Saturday afternoon. I'm not doing anything. I'm going to go in a room where I won't be interrupted. I'm going to tell the family, I'm going to take a little time. Maybe there's have a cup of tea with me or a whole pot of tea, a journal. And I'm going to sit and think about my life thus far and what I want going forward. And that's something that most of us don't do. And the reason we don't do it is we're overwhelmed, like you said, with things right in front of us. I got laundry to do. I got bills to pay. I got to make something for dinner, blah, blah, blah. And we don't necessarily like the question. Eek, these are the big questions about my lifetime, my lifespan. Like, oh yeah, I keep forgetting. It's not infinite. I keep forgetting, because I'm so busy. You're asking me like what I want ever, like bucket list? Yeah, but not bucket list, like going to this country or going on this vacation, but what I want to make happen here on this planet while I'm here. That's a big question. What I want to experience, what I want to leave behind, what I want to bring about, who I want to help, how I want to do my art. A lot of us have been taught, unfortunately, that we don't get to ask that question because who are we? Who am I to have a megaphone and talk to people about things that I care about? Who am I to? I'm no one. Really? You're no one? Look what you've surmounted already. Look what you've overcome. When you believe that you have a right to do the things you want to do the work that you want to do and have the life you deserve, it's going to happen. But it's a real effort. And it requires you to get a periscope up above what you're doing today and tomorrow and the soccer match and all the things we have to do. We still have to do this stuff.
Yeah.
But it requires us to say, I myself in my life am important and I want certain things that I want, and I'm going to take the time to get clear on what those things are. That's the first step.
I love that. And, when we have that self reflection, the things that can pop up for us can be super exciting and sometimes terrifying, but exciting. What's one of my favorite quotes is, what would you attempt to do if you knew you could not fail? And I do think the fear of failure holds us back from a lot of things. So if we just say, okay, let's just try this. I actually every year I pick a word to focus on. I don't do New Year's resolutions. I pick a word, and that's a word I focus on. So I've had like leadership courage one year. I did purpose one year. I've done a bunch of things. I've been doing this for years. This year, my word is yet. So I actually put it on a necklace and I wear it every day. And it's sort of I haven't done that yet. I haven't learned that yet. I haven't tried that yet. And it gives me that sort of dot, dot, dot yet. Like that yet is where I'm leading to. And it gives me that opportunity, which is one of the reasons I started this podcast. I was like, I haven't done that yet. I've been talking about it. Let's just do it. I haven't done it yet. Now I can cross off the yet and I've done it. So it's like a sentence in itself at this point. So I love that idea of self-reflection.
I love that yet. I love it. I love it. It's such a big thing. And work, I think, is right in the middle of this. I know you hear this from folks all the time. Am I too old? Maybe I'm too old to do this thing. Maybe I'm too old. Well, age discrimination. I'm sure it's age discrimination. That's, I mean, mm, there. What's too old? What's too old?
Right.
There's 100-year-old marathon with 100-year-old people running marathons. They're out there running marathons, full of marathons.
Exactly.
It's like, oh, you're putting a lot of us to shame here. But what's to stop us? You said the fear of failure, and it's so true. And it's kind of like when you ask, who's watching? Who's evaluating? Because if anyone's watching you and they're going to judge you because you fail, which how do you even fail? You just keep going. But they're at any point, if anybody finds fault with you in the way you're living your life, God bless, you don't need them in your life.
Exactly. I love that you used an example of running a marathon. When I picked a random day and I just decided I was going to start running. I did the Couch to 5K program. It was a day off from work, but it was a Friday. It was cold in Michigan. It was like 35 degrees. And I decided to do Couch to 5K, which was like, you ran for 90 seconds, and then you walked, and then you ran, and then jogged, that kind of thing. And just to kind of build up your momentum. And it's an 8-week program. And I got back to the house that first time and I said, all right, to stick with this, I'm going to sign up for a 5K. And the first one I found that I wanted to do was 5 weeks later. So I took an 8-week program, squashed it into 5 weeks. I didn't tell anybody that I was doing it because of the fear of failure. I was afraid if I don't do this 5K, and I was like, what? So like, what is, nobody's going to be like, Jennifer, you're a terrible person. Or how can I be friends with you?
Permanent record, Jennifer.
Right? It was crazy. And I mean, it was one of the things I was so proud of when I got finished. And I blasted everywhere like, oh my gosh, I did a first 5K. Then I did a half marathon. That's where I kind of stopped. And now I stick at 5Ks and 8Ks. But it was funny because it was all in my head. And if I told one person, they would have been so supportive, a great cheerleader. But in my own head, I built it up to this fear of failure, which was so silly. And I realized it.
So awesome. That is so, so, so awesome. I live in New York now. But I lived in Colorado for a long time, Boulder, and there's a lot of athletes there and a lot of runners and a lot of very extreme athletes. And so I joined a running club, and the leader of it, the coach was, an unbelievable runner, competitive runner. And then so were most of the runners in the group. So here's me, like, the mom. And, and so I did our big race there in Boulder is called the Boulder 10K. And I finished in like 70 minutes. And I said, wow, that's not even in the categories, of the training groups. He said, do you know there is less distance between you and the person who ran this race the fastest today, between you and the person who is sitting on their couch and
100%.
has never done stuff? You got to stop getting down on yourself, Liz, because you're doing stuff. And that's the whole thing. Anything, baby steps, little steps.
Yep.
You falter, you try again. Who's judging?
Right.
There's nobody left. There's nobody left to evaluate because their opinion doesn't matter.
Exactly. I mean, I know I've heard the phrase, be careful how you talk to yourself, because that's the voice you hear all day long, is the voice you talk to yourself, like what's happening in here. And if we can spin that around a little bit. So Liz, I've really enjoyed this conversation. I have one more question, and it is, so when you see people that are very successful in your program from the career perspective, sort of the human workplace perspective, what are some of the common sort of mindset shifts that you've seen or characteristics or what are you seeing and how can people translate to their own sort of lives?
Well, the biggest shift always, the biggest shift for folks who work with us or folks who experience any kind of transformation or big life change, mindset change is bust through. You said it. You signed up for a 5K when you weren't even 2 days into your running program. You said, I'm going to put a stake in the ground. And when people can change your mindset is hard, right? How do you change your mindset from inside of you? That's a tough thing to do. The best way I know is to take steps out of your comfort zone. Challenge yourself a little bit. Sign up for the 5K. Small things. Listen to different music. Try a different recipe. Drive home from work a different way. Read a different book. Watch a different movie. Hang out with different people. Stretch. We build a cocoon, and then over time, the cocoon gets smaller and smaller and smaller. We eat the same stuff, and our routine is comforting,
Yeah.
but we don't grow. And so stretching outside the comfort zone, when it comes time to make a bigger step out, like apply for a job that you aren't sure you're qualified for, but who's to say you're not? Or we do a program where we train folks, a lot of whom are HR folks, to become career coaches and have their own career coaching business. And the folks always say, I know I'm qualified, but yet I'm like, oh, am I going to be a career coach and charge money for this? Yes, you are, because you're amazing and you're a great listener and you've done incredibly well in this program. And yet it's stepping into a new identity. When we were 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, it was like nothing. I'll take on a different identity every day.
Right.
But now, we're older and it's like, well, my credibility is over there. No, your credibility is right here.
Yeah.
It's in you. Whatever you decide to do, you can do it. And it's going to be getting clear on what you want. Like, I want to run a 5K or a half marathon. And then taking steps, not just the steps in the training, that's huge, but getting out of your comfort zone, scaring yourself, testing yourself, challenging yourself a little bit every day. And saying, I'm going to do this thing. If I fail, so what? Well, there's literally no stakes.
That's so great. I know that there's been times in my life that I have been surprised how sometimes other people perceive me. And it's because it's different than the voice I've had in my head. And it allows you to change how you think about yourself. And if we can do that for ourselves and not rely on other people, sort of like expand that. Now, just those baby steps that you're talking about, trying to read something new, watching something new, listening to a different type of book or a different type of author or meeting new people, expanding that exposure. One of the reasons I love travel is because it really does truly expand my brain of where I'm going. Like all these pictures behind me are all places that I've been. I continue to travel because it opens up your world when you are trying new things. And I think that that's fantastic. And to me, that's a great definition of being fully engaged as well. That gives you a lot of fizz when you're doing those.
It gives you a lot of fizz.
It gives you a lot of fizz.
Fizz off the charts. Absolutely, Jennifer.
Liz, this was so great. Thank you so much for spending some time with us today and chatting about your world and the human workplace and our place in it.
Thank you so much for having me. And here's to you. And have a great rest of the week.
This has been Fully Engaged with Jennifer N. Sutherland. If you're interested in discovering how the art and science of leadership can combine to create exceptional workplaces, visit us at SutherlandTalentSolutions.com. Thanks for listening, and until next time, stay fully engaged.